What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pixelists Podcast, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. As always, we're your hosts. That's Blake. I'm Will. And today, we're here to talk a little Worlds Beyond Number.
Well done. Good,
Thank
sir.
you. For those of you that are like, that was not that anybody pays this close attention, but that was a little bit of a longer delay between when the music ends and when the voice start. It's because I was choking on some ice. So may all your questions be answered.
Well, I was literally about to say we had an intro that wasn't weird, and
well, we can't have that.
I was about to make a joke about it, and well, there you go.
Boom. So, got to stay on brand above all else.
More updates later today.
That's right.
On our drinking habits.
Well, I keep joking.
Yeah. So, how are you today, my friend?
I'm pretty good. I got a little scratchiness in the throat, which half, or maybe not even half the time, most of the time, goes away. But sometimes, it develops into like sore throat, maybe strep. So I'm like sitting here hoping that's not the case. But other than that, I'm doing good.
How often do you get scratchiness in your throat?
Not that often, but I got strep a lot as a kid. So maybe I just have maybe I'm just like sensitive about it now or something. I don't know. But
yeah, I gotcha.
Not that often, but we'll see.
Okay.
How you doing today?
Doing all right. We ran out of the good coffee, but my wife found some other coffee at Aldi's, and it was actually pretty good.
Oh, what like a brand or?
I'll have to ask her. Yeah.
I don't. I used to live right next to Aldi, and I don't anymore. Yeah. So I never go there anymore. But I love it. Like I need to.
Yeah.
I need to go back. So yeah, if you find out, let me know because I'll try it.
We need to go back.
Let's go back.
But otherwise, no, things are good. Had an okay weekend, gearing up for the Star Wars one shot on Friday. And
is it gonna be like at your house, or are you going somewhere?
I'm going to the bachelor, the person's house, I guess. Okay. But he's local. So
okay, yeah, in Fayetteville. Okay. Nice, man. Have you started prepping for it
yet? Yeah. Right now I'm working on there's probably a smarter way to do this, so I'll probably do some research after the fact and use it to kind of clean up some things. But what I'm trying to do is create the different character sheets for people to choose, and I'm taking kind of a few typical D&D classes and porting them over to a Star Wars feel.
Yeah.
So the barbarian is the heavy gunner.
Okay.
And then also on the character sheet I have this character is most like, and then a character from Star Wars lore.
Oh, that's cool.
So the gunnery, the heavy gunner is most like, oh man, and now I can't even think of his name. He was in Rogue One. Rogue One, but then he came back in, oh, you didn't see.
I know you're talking, Andor.
Yeah, Andor.
The main guy? Or no?
No, side character. Let me see his name. It's going to drive me crazy. Forrest Whitaker. Forrest Whitaker's character. Yeah. So it's this guy is most like this kind of character. Said that backwards, but that way people can kind of get an idea of because this is very much like a fan service one shot. The guy getting married loves Star Wars.
Right.
So there's got to be a lightsaber for him to wield at some point, right? So anyway,
I think that's a great idea. Help people kind of take away the anxiety of picking when they don't know what's going on.
Well, figure with a one shot, you can spend 2 hours just prepping your characters. So I think it'll be better if people go in this is my character, this is what I can do. So
yeah, I agree. Anyway. I think that's smart. Well, nice, man. I'm excited to hear how that goes.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I think you're going to kill it, and I think they're going to have a great time.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to jump into some Worlds Beyond today. I know we also had a pretty good Critical Role episode Thursday. I haven't seen the second half, but there's a lot of chatter about it. Yeah, so
it was a good one.
I'm doing my best.
It was a good one, yeah.
So anyway. Well, any other updates from us?
I don't think so. Just okay. We'll be, speaking of Critical Role, we'll be getting that out sometime in the next 2 or 3 days, I would imagine. And then just everything else pretty standard. We'll have our Critical Role watch party on Thursday night. our live stream Friday afternoon, and yeah, just all the standard things. Be sure to join the Discord. It'll be linked down in the description below. That'll be the best place to hang out, talk with us, talk Worlds Beyond. There was some good chatter going on, and we'll maybe talk about it in a minute. But in the Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One chat, which we want more of you in there, so come join us.
Come join us.
But yeah, that's all I got.
Okay. Well, if you haven't tuned into us before, we like to do a little recap before we talk about the episode, and then we peel out that recap as a separate video on it in and of its own right. And then we jump into the conversation. So if you're watching just the recap, in the description, you can see our full episode discussion. So you can click that link. But this was episode 26, I think. Yes. And I think it's called the Conclave of Elders, the Conclave of
the Conclave of the Witches of the Coven of Elders. Yeah.
There you go. And this episode opens up. If you remember in the previous episode, Ursulon had just arrived on his solar steed, Hanuman. And there's some chatter around, like, what is the nature of Hanuman? What is this creature? Aabria knows, like, certainly this is a spiritual creature, or a creature of the spirit world. And Ursulon realizes, thanks to Brennan's prodding, that he can actually speak to beasts, and asks Hanuman, are you here like permanently? Like, did I just get like a major upgrade? Brennan points out that he has the bridle to keep, but that Hanuman seems to be trying to get the bridle off and implying this is like a temporary point of travel. He takes the bridle off. Hanuman departs. We get a moment of a little bit of a break where Suvi can finally let her two friends know how pissed off she is about what happened, the nature of them leaving before. We get an interesting promise from Ame that she'll never do anything like that again, which is pretty interesting to see how that plays out in the future. But for the most part, Suvi still is pretty pissed off, but they're at least able to sort of like resolve the tension by Ame apologizing. Ursulon mentions very briefly where he's been, like his experience with his family. And they decide to check out the sort of, I can't remember if it was like a tower or like a little, like maybe like a keep that was set aside for Grandmother Rin. But they decide to go take a look at that and look at it more in detail. And Brennan describes a very, I can't get the word, conservative little humble cottage in this keep where pretty much everything has been huddled in front of the fireplace. And there's a comment that, is it humble because Grandmother Rin preferred it? Was Indri trying to be respectful of Grandmother Rin's style and kind of create a humble space? But it's very different from like the grand development that we've seen like this entire castle be. While they're chatting in Grandmother Rin's cottage, or rather the place dedicated to Grandmother Rin, there's a knock on the door, and the best way to describe the person who comes to the door is, imagine like a chimney sweeper from like the early 1900s. There is this little girl in like dilapidated clothes. Brennan describes her as like, her clothing's torn. She has soot on her. This is Neef, and she informs them that she is the apprentice of Indri. And her job, amongst many things, is to clean all of the towers across the castle grounds. The party's immediately concerned. Neef is a very total opposite in terms of Indri's like esteem and beauty. And there's a couple of things they try to do. First, they try to offer help to Neef, which Neef declines and says, you can tell that she's like repeated or like rather memorized things that Indri has said to her, such as like, no, I cannot accept help because that would imply that I need help and I have everything that I need, yada, yada, you get it. But Ame's a little bit clever about it. She says, hey, I have these honey cakes for you to take. I would like you to taste them and ensure that they are of the best quality for the other witches, which Neef is very grateful for. And then Suvi she says, give me your scarf. Like, I want to have your scarf, which Neef obliges. And then Suvi uses uses mend to fix the scarf. and then says, "Never mind, I don't want it anymore," and hands it back to Neef and says, "This isn't a scarf that I actually want to have anymore." But anyway, all that to say, Neef explains that the witches are coming shortly, and if there's anything else that they have need of, to just let her know. Neef leaves. Ursulon's like, "Who is this Indri? Like, what's going on here?" And they begin to describe Indri. I think Ami actually says, like, "Imagine the most beautiful person you can." And then like that cranked up to 11. Like they're already like gorgeous. And then they use magic to be even more incredible. Suvi also is feeling fairly still miffed about what brought them here. And she says, "Hey, I'm glad we're all back together. I'm glad everyone's safe, but I need to go check on my people, the wizards that I came with." And she departs. Ursulon and Ame, Ursulon shares some more information about seeing Kalaya and their family, and then says, "Hey, Kalaya said if you were to see my shield, you might have some ideas for what you might do to improve it." He brings out the shield with the tree painted on it. And Brennan basically tells Erika that she's going to have a choice to either make this item sturdier or easier to wield. We don't quite get the answer of where she goes with that, though, because we actually cut over to Suvi, who's roaming the halls of the castle to try to find Indri. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah. So Suvi is basically kind of, you got to remember that she has this secret mission that she doesn't even really remember, but like she's compelled to do it, right? So as she's kind of quote unquote making her way back to her quarters, she kind of like wants to run into Indri, sort of. And so she's kind of more so roaming around, just like scoping things out. And as she's doing that, she comes across this door and she peeks in and or actually excuse me, before that happens she does actually run into Neef once more, who is carrying like 5 scarves, and Suvi is like, "Hey, I don't actually need a scarf, like I was just trying to help and get around these weird rules."
Yeah.
And Neef is like, "Could you please just like take one so that I can complete the request you gave me?" And so Suvi does pick one, and she picks one that like most matches Indri. um and then she asks like, "Hey Neef, like what's the best way to get back to my quarters?" And Neef explains kind of like, "If you don't want to get into the cold, like go this way, you'll go past the library or whatever." And so Suvi's like, "Thank you so much." So then as Suvi is going, she comes past this library and she takes a peek inside. And inside is the most beautiful thing she has ever seen, she says. It is this opulent, like gorgeous library that has this enormous telescope in it that is pointing up at the heavens, at the stars. And Benner describes these like ice shelves lining this room that like go on forever basically. And what is on these shelves are essentially stars themselves, as if they have been plucked from the sky and kept here. And basically just these radiant gems that are projecting shadows everywhere, like the brightest diamonds you've ever seen. And each of the stars has like a plaque in front of it, that's in an ancient language, basically describing the name of it or the name of its constellation. And Suvi's just taking all of this in, and again, she literally claims it's the most beautiful place she's ever been, most beautiful thing she's ever seen. And in addition to the stars lining the walls, there are like these wells in the room that are just filled with a limitless amount of even more stars. So as she's walking around, she kind of has this compulsion because like this room and this place has gifted her such beauty that she wants to return the favor. And that takes the shape of leaving the music box here, which again, that was her secret mission, but this is how she's reconciled it in her mind. So she finds this kind of like little hidden alcove, opens the music box, and places it there, as a gift to this place. And after she does that, she decides to just take her leave. So we then cut back to Ame and Ursulon, who Ame is still looking at this shield and still trying to decide how best she wants to enchant it. And ultimately, the decision is made to make it quicker and lighter. And Ursulon is like, "Yeah, that sounds great to me." And so then Brennan tells us that this is a +3 magical shield that now has a bonus action where you can extend that +3 bonus to an ally within 5 feet of you. So Ursulon kind of like tries this out by like protecting Ame really quick. And there's this great moment where he like now says, I am the protector of the wizard sky and the guardian of the witch of the wild's heart. Again, really sweet moment. And then after that, we basically cut to the next morning. And there's this interesting line here, which we'll probably talk more about in our discussion, but about like time not moving here. So it's not like actually like the sun didn't rise insofar as it's morning, but it's the next morning. And there's like a reflection of eternity here, is what Brennan described it as. But anyways, everyone wakes up, each of them receiving a respective knock at their door. Costa, Indri's familiar, is at Suvi's door, and Neef is at Ame and Ursulon's, and they tell them that within the hour, the arrival of the Coven of Elders will take place. And Suvi basically asks, like, as an outsider, like, is there anywhere like I shouldn't go, that I'm like not allowed while this is happening? And Costa tells her that there is like a chamber where the actual meeting will take place, and no one is allowed in there except members of the Coven. But other than that, like, you're chill, basically. And Suvi just knows that, like, while that meeting will be private, there will be like an adjourning of that meeting where Ame will be able to come and conference with her retinue and the other witches as well, obviously. So everyone comes from their place and meets in this great hall. And we can kind of get a glimpse into this other chamber off the great hall, which is this like crazy tall, cylindrical chamber that has a massive dome at the top that seems to be directly beneath the North Star. And at like the top of this tall room is a platform with 5 thrones on it. So that is where like the actual coven will take place. So we see that, but then everybody is still just hanging out in the great hall itself around a big fireplace, kind of just all coming together. So Ame, Suvi, and Ursulon, of course, reunite. But then Indri walks in, and this is the first time Ursulon is seeing her, and he fails his charm against her. So, he's instantly in love, basically. And as that's happening, the great doors burst open, and in pours a horde of animals. Brennan describes wolves, panthers, falcons, eagles, hawks, leopards, lions. The entire like jungle basically comes in, and all of these animals are like feral looking. Their jaws are soaked with blood, as if they have just freshly killed. And at the center of this stampede, essentially, is this group of people. And at the center of that group of people is an ancient looking woman, covered in this like gown of moss and bark. And Brenner describes her as an older black woman with verdant green eyes. And as she steps, moss kind of like grows in front of her. This is Hakaya, the Hakaya of the Woodland Green. And her familiar is this like ancient serpent that's draped around her shoulders. And to either side, she's having people help her walk because she's ancient again. So on the left, Brenda describes this wild one, this spirit that's like made of oak, like he's completely made of wood. And then on her other side is this witch that is like feral, like blood dripping from like every piece of her. She's wearing deer antlers, like a deer skin is like her only clothing. Her hands are like claws. You can't really tell if like it's a hand or it's a claw. Just extremely kind of feral and rough looking. And basically everyone has to make a saving throw upon glancing at this woman. And I think Ame succeeds, but the other 2 fail. But then there's another saving throw that has to be made, and it's the opposite. Ame fails and the other 2 succeed. So the one Ame fails, Brennan describes she starts to get sleepy, and this is apparently the effect from Hakaya of the Woodland Green. But Ursulon and Suvi fail from this feral looking witch, and they basically, Brennan describes that you get this feeling like if you were to run right now, then this witch would come kill you, and like there would be no magical rule that prevented that. So they're like, okay. And basically we realize that this is the Witch of the Wild Hunt grimoire, and all of these beasts, of course, are her kind of retinue. So also on Grimoire's shoulder is a tiny little girl who like also looks feral, and I think is eating a heart, and like blood's pouring down her mouth, and she's like holding on to Grimoire's antlers. And then a hawk, which is Grimoire's familiar, perches on her other shoulder. So everybody's coming in. One of these wolves I described earlier transforms into a man, and like looks at Ursulon, basically wanting to fight him. And a group of fireflies come from around Hakaya, and they transform into a woman. And basically, everyone kind of settles and arrives. And this is again the Wild Hunt, the Witch of the Wild Hunt, and the Witch of the Woodland Green arriving at the Conclave of Elders. So Hakaya approaches, looks at Ame. Ame introduces herself, and Hakaya only replies with honor, honor. So then Grimoire turns to Ame and is like, "Are you going to say hello to me?" And Ame says, "Oh, I long hoped to meet you, and it's an honor to meet you as well, and your apprentice." And then Grimoire asks if she can see Ame's teeth. So Ame opens her mouth, and Grimoire like puts her entire face inside of it, basically smells, and then it says, "You want to look at my teeth?" And she like opens her mouth, and Ame's like, "No, like I know how strong you are. Like I wouldn't, I don't need to do that. I would never presume." And Grimoire's like, "I was just a joke. I was gonna lick your nose." Um, as all that's happening, we then hear a crow cry out, and then attention is drawn towards that other chamber with the 5 thrones at the very top. And already seated in her throne is Marara, the Witch of the Waning Moon. Basically, jet black robes, the white mask, like the crown of thorns, and the long, like creepy nails, just like clicking on the arm of the throne, basically saying, "I think it's time for this to begin." And that's where the episode ends. Again, episode 26 of The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, the Conclave of the Witches of the Coven of Elders. So yeah, if you made it this far, and you want to see our full discussion and you're on the recap video, be sure to check the link down below.
Great job, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do not feel good about these people.
No, bro.
Yeah.
Grimoire was crazy.
Yes, totally, dude.
Such a cool character.
And I was also kind of like, if I'm Ame, I'm like, hey, you guys came here together. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a little outnumbered here. And then Marara, I feel like Marara was a lot scarier too.
Yeah.
Like, I think Brennan describes like her arms were like kind of like long and spindly almost.
Yeah, like super long. I was getting like Slender Man vibes.
It made me think of the Dreamers, the 3 like kings or something from Hollow Knight, or kings or queens, I can't remember. You remember that boss fight where it's like the 3 of them that are like up on a throne and like that's kind of what I was thinking of, honestly.
I could see that.
Because they have like the white mask, but
Marara feels like she belongs in Hollow Knight, kind of.
Yeah.
Just like her aesthetic in general. So I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, a pretty imposing group of witches here, for naive Ame to figure out what to do with, I guess.
Right. Yeah, they all seem very intimidating in their own right, which again just I feel like shows how strong Grandmother Rin was. And also speaks to her humility, because like she's just an old lady in a cabin in the woods, like but I do think that she was just as, if not stronger than these witches, I would presume.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like Ame is out of her depth.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. They're level 3? Is that right?
Or 3 or 4. I think 3. I think they're 3.
Yeah. So it seems like Brennan's giving like a level up for each arc, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start, really, but did you have something?
I was just to say, Grimoire, could we see like one of Suvi's wizards like fail and run and like panic and just like I'm just saying, like, the opportunity for tension to like just become insane is like, it's there. Like, I just feel like Brennan as like this disaster artist is just going to craft like the most wild next few episodes. I mean, it could also be like, hey, we're all cool, everything's fine, like, this is all a big misunderstanding, like, we love you, Ame.
We're all friends here. I didn't even think about the kind of cannon fodder of the other people with Suvi, but I mean, I don't know, like that would be cool to see in action, because Brennan Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's pretty
Um,
much it. Just I would love to see that effect in action,
mhm.
because that was just so cool. Like such a cool aura to have, I guess.
I love also, I didn't pick up on this. I love how you pointed out the difference between Grandmother Wren and all these other witches. Because we've seen Grimoire, Marara. I can't think of the lady's name who said honor, honor, the jungle lady.
Hafaya.
Um, Hafaya.
Oh, that might.
Um,
It's close to that. Hakaya,
Hakaya. And was there another one, or is that it?
An injury.
An injury, right. But I feel like there was supposed to be more to come, but maybe I'm misremembering. But everyone we've seen has very either grand personas or like a grand description or like very
Yeah.
literally injury, like this massive sprawling kingdom that she lives in. And you have Grandmother Wren, who lives in a cottage by a small town. I feel like that's such an intentional point by Brennan.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to see where that's going to go.
Yeah, I think so too. Very interesting. And I love how it wasn't in this episode, but I don't even remember when it was, but the whole point about like Grandmother Wren was many things to many people,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So yeah, I love the like the stark contrast of it, especially given like the greater kind of conflict here is that the
Right.
witches hate the wizards and what they're doing to the world, but really like maybe that's because they're very similar. Like the witches and their
Yeah.
grandioseness is, you know, maybe they
Yeah.
kind of feel like they're getting encroached upon.
It is interesting how they both factions, though opposing one another, have the same like thematic style. Like they both have the same vice. Maybe it's
Yeah.
too harsh to use that word, but like yeah, this sort of arrogance and like grandioseness, and you know, it's very interesting.
Yeah. I think because I think previously in the story, it was kind of easy to draw the line of like, and this is very general, wizards bad,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
spirits good, which is
Mm-hmm.
good. But now,
Mm-hmm.
like maybe kind of Rin and Ame were more of the exception rather than the generalization of how witches are. Like you just said, maybe they share the same vice. In fact,
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. So where to dive in? We kind of already did, but
yeah. Anything? Well, I feel like the most I want to talk about is the coven and stuff.
okay.
So, is there anything
Yeah.
before that we should hit?
There's not really anything like interesting to say about it. I just love Neef. I love how Brennan designed this character. Um, you know, I feel like this is such like a cliche is the wrong use of the word because cliche has such like a negative connotation to it. But there's always like in just great film or literature, you know, there's the established like kingly or queenly, like the regal character who then
Yeah.
has the, you know, I think of Severus Snape, who has the little elf, Dobby.
Oh, you mean not Snape?
Yeah, not Snape.
Malfoy's dad.
Malfoy's dad. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry. By the way, guys, I only saw like the second movie, so my DNA group gives me a hard time for not knowing more Harry Potter lore. This
Did
would
you
be a
read the
perfect
books?
example. I read up to Goblet of Fire.
Oh, bro, who are you, man?
So I don't know, and I feel like nowadays, like there's just not as much. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean nowadays it's a whole can of worms with,
Yeah.
but not that it makes. But anyway,
No.
when
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
coming
Sure.
out was like when we were kids and like everyone was reading them. So I'm just surprised that you didn't.
Well, apologies to our Harry Potter lore keepers for me just absolutely destroying this
We'll
example.
forgive you.
But you know, having like a character who's like menacing or imposing, but who has like a servant that is obviously not given dignity to.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example with Neef as well. So not much to say about it other than I just really like this character, and you know, the players I'm sure are thinking of, you know, what does justice for Neef look like before this arc ends? So,
Yeah. It also not to get drawn out on this, but another example would be like Jafar and Iago, his parrot,
yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, the stark contrast really made me kind of wonder things because in the Malfoy, Dobby, or Jafar example, they're more of their like servants. But in this case, the presumption is that Neef would like one day take over,
I don't
right?
know though. I
As an
feel like
apprentice.
maybe, yeah, I think that's the rule. It almost feels like Indri is so wrapped in her own arrogance that I have to have an apprentice because I have to have one. And yet I have no intention of ever,
I could see
like,
that. Where
you
like she
know,
has an apprentice in order to have a servant, but doesn't really
hmm
ever intend on passing over the
yeah,
mantle.
yeah,
Um, because we do presumably think she's, I don't know if ancient is the right word, because I think they're humans,
yeah.
but like they seem to have some way of like prolonging their life.
Well, and also Neep doesn't seem to be learning anything about magic. So,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would agree, but we don't know because in the same way that like
so
Rin had Ame do chores because she is really young, right? Neef was like
yeah,
12 or
that's
something.
true. That's true, actually.
But I think that's giving Injury a big benefit of the doubt. To me, the implication was that she doesn't treat her well,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
which was interesting.
I mean, it could be like there could be like a Mr. Miyagi spin to it where they're like, we want justice for Neef. And then Indri's like, it was only through my 1000th fireplace that I cleaned that I understood
Yeah,
resilience, and then
yeah,
everyone's like, oh, you're the good guy, Indri. I don't know. I mean, it could happen.
yeah.
So,
I definitely think either way could be true at this point.
yeah,
It's still up in the air, but I do think that was introduced as a
yeah.
question mark, kind of.
The
Um,
More to
uh,
say about Neef?
just that not really other than that if there ever was a replacement, which I don't know if I mean Indri could die next episode for all we know, but she could also live 1,000 more years. So like maybe that transition of power would never happen. But if it did, the whole crew seems to have made perhaps an ally of the next Witch
Yeah.
of the Wind and Stars.
And two things I want to say with that. It would be interesting to have Neef become the Witch of the Wind and Stars, and now Ame, who was the green one, is now, has is able to kind of take a more mentoring role. That's kind of a
Yeah.
point of development that would be interesting for her. But separately, you mentioned like having an ally. I love how Brennan talked about. I think when Suvi maybe gives the scarf back or something that she said. Brennan says that Neef, like, you can see like her understanding of things changed. I took that to mean like what she's been told about wizards. Like she's really realizing, like,
Mm,
oh, this one's kind. Like it's sort of evolving her worldview.
yeah.
But maybe that's a reach. I don't know.
No, that's I didn't put that together, but that makes sense to me. I like
Which could
that.
be when you say ally, it could be later if they have a conversation of basically, should we wipe out the humans or the
Yeah.
wizards? That maybe, Neef is like, it's more complicated. So,
Yeah. I could totally
um,
see that. And I liked the whole they didn't really like get into it, but I liked the whole like between the lines of like the rules of engagement with Neef. Like we're
mhm,
like they had to kind of ask for Neef's help, but in reality they were helping her type of thing.
yeah,
That's just been kind of a fun dynamic to play with,
mhm,
even dating back to Ame having to figure out how to invite Suvi.
yeah,
I hope we
uh-huh.
get like more stuff like that.
Yeah. Those rituals. It's kind of cool that Brennan's created all of it because that's kind of the culture for the players to discover. It makes it
Yeah.
all feel a lot fuller, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Um, Something else that I think was an interesting Brennan decision. Ursulon's shield. This is a very powerful item.
Yeah.
Um, Wavebreaker is a +3 sword, right?
I think so. I don't remember 100%, but
So
that sounds right.
I don't know how much our listeners play D&D. So in D&D, you find a variety of items. So the plus the plus corresponds to, on your dice roll, an additional bonus. It's understood that at low levels, a +1 is a decently like strong item to discover. So you could imagine +3 is typically reserved for like a mythological item, which
Yeah.
Wavebreaker made sense. It's like this is a once in a campaign type of item that you would likely find, a +3 sword. So I didn't begrudge Brennan for it. Now having the +3 shield, I'm like, dude, this is the strongest level 3 character. I mean, this is nuts because
Yeah.
also the ability to extend that +3 to someone within 5 feet. And then Brennan said you also still have the +2 bonus of the shield. So again, for people listening, you have your armor class, which determines if people can hit you or not. A shield gives you +2 to your armor class, just having the shield. So it's really a +5 because of the +3 on top of that. But then being able to give that to someone else, very cool flavor item. But I'm also like, dude, this is going to be wild. Like, this is going to be crazy. It's kind of what I was thinking with it.
Yeah. It is crazy
not in a bad way. I'm just, go ahead.
Yeah. I'm totally with you in that, like, such a low level character having such powerful items is like, whoa. But I like it, I think, because, you know, not that you didn't, because Wavebreaker is like a really, like, it's like an artifact, you know, like this powerful thing. And the shield, I feel like there's so much cool meaning behind it with the connection to his sister and everything. So like, I think it's not as if they just like opened a random chest and found these crazy items, you know? So I like that Brennan's kind of baked that into the story. And both are very meaningful to Ursulon personally.
And he doesn't wear chainmail either, which is a pretty like stereotypical like starting-ish item for players. So I think almost in a way, Brennan's found a cool way to sort of like balance out the AC without, because a lot of people kind of metagame it when they play D&D. They're like, yeah, I want to go get my chainmail. Like, I have it. Like, I went to the shop and I got it.
Yeah.
Ursulon obviously never did that, so was missing the AC bonus from that. So it probably evens out, you know?
Yeah, I like it. And I think, was it a bonus action?
I think it was a bonus action. I don't think it's a reaction.
I was gonna say, because a reaction I think would like be better, because, you know, you could kind of use it in the moment. Bonus action makes it a little bit more balanced in that you're gonna have to preemptively do it, and
then wait till it's your turn again to change it.
Right. So that is kind of cool, a cool way to balance it a little bit. Which I was wondering about this, that prophecy about if you don't get a shield, Ame and Suvi will die. This mechanic could be how Brennan 100%. Wants to play with that. Like, you know, like, oh, if you literally hadn't shielded them, you know, or it'd be interesting to find out if, I think that path makes a lot of sense, but it would be kind of cool too if it was less of a literal thing and more of a like a symbolic thing, which I don't know how to put that piece in the puzzle yet, but just like somehow like the act of getting the shield, the act of Ame enchanting it, like kind of bringing them together a little bit, or, you know, I don't know.
Those are really the only two things, Neef and the shield, that I really wanted to park on. So if you have anything else, if you don't have anything else, we can. I will just say briefly. So Suvi planted the music box. So that's been placed. So it'll be interesting to see where we go with that. She's supposed to come back and get it later, right?
Yeah, after somebody sings. She needs somebody to sing that's like not a wizard, I think. But yeah, then she has to go back and get it.
Yeah.
So other than that, before we go on to the witches, I loved the reunion with the trio when Ursulon first arrived. Suvi kind of let them know, but I actually really enjoyed, I don't know if it was appropriate to call it a clapback or not, but Ursulon kind of defending himself, saying that, like, you know, Suvi, I'm sorry, but if I hadn't done what I'd done, I would have never found my sister. So like, you know, you're important to me, but also my family is. And so like, I'm glad I did it, basically. And also letting her know that like he protected those other wizards. So because I think Suvi has every right to be upset at those two, but I don't think she tries too hard to put herself in their shoes either, you know? So I like when they kind of fight back a little bit.
She's pretty rightfully upset, but you know, it's when the ends justify the means. You know, Ursulon literally reunited with his sister. It's really hard to be like, well, you still shouldn't have.
True. So. And it really was less his fault, You know,
Right.
Ame is the one that kind of caused the chaos, and Ursulon just kind of took
Do
the
you
leap of faith.
do you think Ame is going to keep her promise?
I don't know. You know, it's kind of weird, especially like the power of words and promises and the rules of witches and wizards. Like, I think she's gonna try, but I could see some tension there and
Yeah.
some consequences potentially.
The problem with her keeping the promise is every decision she's made that has gone against Suvi has made total sense why she did that. Like going to Orima's shrine, for example. Um,
Yeah,
so it's kind of it's been decisions that have been like deeply entrenched in her value system. So it's hard to imagine a situation where she's like, "Well, I promised I wouldn't, so I won't."
right.
You know, so it's
Yeah,
a very bold promise. But you made a really good point I didn't think about. If she breaks that promise, it would be really interesting if Brennan created some kind of like consequence of like when a witch breaks their promise.
yeah,
Like, what could that entail?
yeah. I think that would definitely have some consequences. Kind of almost a mirror to the way Suvi grabbed Ame's arm, and like
Hmm.
that has
Yeah.
consequences. Kind of like the
Yeah.
other side of that type of thing.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, their dynamic is fascinating. So I just can't wait to see that evolve in general. Um, the only other thing from that kind of first section is when Urslan was filling them in on the Man in Black. I He knew more than I recalled that he knew, and so I didn't know. Which I'm assuming it's just stuff that I kind of just forgot, rather than like we didn't know this. But um, talking about how like I'm trying to find where I wrote this, but just that like he wants to get rid of Ame because of Ame's alliance with wizards, and that like he
Yeah.
wants to take down the Citadel, and Ame is the only
Honestly,
thing standing in his way.
no, you're right. Yeah. This is a so I was driving when I was listening to this scene and it threw me back to Taliesin Ashton in Critical Role talking about the town where they destroyed the temple, and he was explaining like, "Oh, these are all the bad things that they were doing," and you're like, "I never really, none of it was really ever said." I thought this was like the exact situation where like, but you know, Brennan notably didn't step in and say anything, so I guess I kind of wonder like maybe that's just like a great. You know, when your players kind of take on their own meaning of things, like maybe that's something to like kind of step aside and let them do. But definitely, you are right. He took some liberties, makes it sound arrogant, and I don't want to say misremembered because maybe it sounds like he was being foolish, but some details that I don't think were ever explicitly said that Brennan allowed to be said and was like, sure, yeah, let's go with that. So
Yeah,
I'm with
okay.
you.
Well, so I couldn't remember if that was just me not remembering or if that's what happened. So that's interesting to hear, which I wonder if it's even like behind the screen stuff that like maybe
Mm,
it is true, and just like Brennan only told Ursula on that or
yeah,
something, and this was his way of
yeah,
revealing it.
yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting, which it does make sense. Not that that means it's for sure true, but it does make sense on um why the whole beef with grandmother Rin and now with Ame, because she kind of is the pillar in the witch community that's preventing them from just like turning against the humans. So if she's out of the picture, the Man in Black, the rest of the Coven of Elders, whoever else can maybe just have their way. But yeah, it also made me wonder like, is the Man in Black in conjunction or working or tentative allies with anybody in the Coven of Elders, since they seem to align at least on that front?
Mm, yeah, yeah. No, that's a good point actually.
I don't know.
Well, speaking of the coven, super spooky, not seemingly very nice group of people. Um, where do we want to start with this?
Well, we know that according to the prediction, the prophecy, that they are wanting to get rid of Ame's station. But in order to do that, they're going to have to get rid of another station. It's like the
Right,
defense Ame is supposed to like give.
right.
So to me, that kind of makes it seem like if they're going to be successful here, Ame needs to turn a vote.
Yeah.
basically convince like, hey, if I go down, one of y'all is going down too. So I'm curious of like of the four that we know of, like who might she be able to get through to? Like who's going to be her ally here?
She's probably gonna be like, hey, well, if you get rid of me, it's gonna be an even number. You can't vote on an even number. It's gotta be odd. So someone else has to go. They're like, you got us. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how the voting works. Like,
Well, it seems like Hakaya and Grimoire are in like sort of in cahoots. Sounds too malicious, but two peas in a pod, which sounds a little too nice, I guess. But
yeah,
they definitely seem partners almost, or supportive of one another. So maybe that's part of it. Is like Ame makes a play for like removing one of the two of them, and the other one's like, well, no, we can't do that. And then but my other thought is like maybe Marara. There's a play with her where we know Marara had a relationship with Ren, and maybe I don't know. I'm very curious also like the pecking order of everybody.
yeah, yeah.
Like is Indri the queen of the coven, for lack of a better phrase, since it's here, or is it Marara who was sort of like starting the meeting? Or
Yeah, the starting the meeting thing, I was interested. Like maybe that's nothing, or like I wondered if that was like a totem pole, like if other witches would be upset that like she did that, or what the
yeah,
pecking order was. But my presumption was that they were equal. Because
yeah,
the only reason it's here is because Ame like said you pick. Like I
yeah.
think Ame could have originally chosen the location. Um, so I don't think Indri is above the others necessarily. Um, and I imagine since it is like a coven where they're going to have to convene and potentially vote, that they're supposed to be equal. Now, whether that's the case or not, I don't know. But yeah, I
Right,
liked the like symbiotic relationship between Grimoire and Hakaya. And I feel like it makes sense too, given their realms. Like
right.
the woodland green, aka like the forest, like the earth, and then the wild hunt, like the beasts, which live in the woodland green. Like they kind of one can't really exist without the other. So I don't know if that's like a thematic connection between them, or if there's like something more surface than that. Like they are friends, like in general or something. But yeah, so that's interesting. I wonder if like if she could get one of them, would that guarantee both? Like in terms of it had to come down to a vote, like if she could just convince one of those two, the other one's going to come along. Or like you said, if it's the other way, where like if she like attacks one of them, um, then I guess it depends on Ame's angle, right? Is it going to be like, hey, you get rid of me, then you're also going to have to get rid of this person? Or if it's going to be more of like, hey, if they get rid of me, they have to get rid of somebody else. So like you need to be on my side so that you're safe. Um, so I'm kind of yapping, but yeah, they all are really cool, super intimidating, and I'm very curious about the interpersonal relationships here.
I'm kind of worried about the fox, man.
Yeah, you better not make any wrong moves around this horde.
So except for Marara, I think every witch we've seen, or at least Hakaya, Grimoire, and Indri all have a aura that cause like a saving throw. I wonder if Ame would eventually unlock like her own aura with a saving
Yeah,
throw.
and I wonder if Marara does too.
Hmm.
Even though theoretically you would have thought young Ame would have been affected by it, but actually didn't. Wasn't she when she touched her? But that was more of a she touched her, so I think that was more of like a direct spell implication.
Yeah, yeah, something
But
like that. I think.
but I would imagine Marara has one too. And actually, one of the in our Discord, I don't know if you went back and looked after you
No.
watched the episode. Let me just pull it up really quick. Um, but Blue Button in there, their theory was that Indri is charm person, like that's their aura. Grimoire was cause fear, and Hakaya was sleep. And so I think that makes perfect sense to me.
Ah,
Um,
yes. Okay. They
and so
each
yeah, I
reflect
am.
the
I
first
I
level
feel like Ame
spell. I
and
love that.
Marara could at least have those as well.
Yeah, great job, Blue Button. I love that theory. I'm all about that. I think
Yeah,
that's a
me
really
too.
great um and just a very cool like flavor detail if that ends up being true, that they each do a level 1 spell, which then makes me wonder what would Ame's spell be.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know.
which I don't know. Hmm.
Very interesting. And similarly, Glim, which may be Glimmy now, who knows? He's saying that I don't know if it was in the fireside chat or what, which unfortunately I haven't had a chance to listen to yet. But the I can't remember her name, but Grimoire's apprentice eating the heart could have been like symbolic of the intention to take out the witch of the world's heart. So I
They
thought that
said
was
that in the fireside chat.
I don't remember. I think because I haven't heard it yet, but I think he referenced them talking about it in that.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's Glimmy. Eric, we're gonna need you to
I
set the
know,
lore. We need our Glimmy
because
lore.
I feel like when we talked about that in our live stream, he made a comment as if you were right, but I'm not sure if that was just joking at my expense. Maybe that's copium for me. But yeah, we need the deep lore.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So, okay. Well, that's interesting though. What is that small girl? Was that like a sprite almost, or
it
is
was
that the
her
implication?
apprentice, but I don't know if that
Right,
means.
but she was like a little girl on her shoulder, or is it just like literally a small young girl sitting on her
That's what
shoulder?
I thought, that it was like a
Oh,
young,
okay.
like a not toddler, I guess, but like a young kid that's young
Okay.
enough to be on her shoulder.
I envision like a Tinkerbell from like Peter Pan who's just like chilling, eating like a big old heart. And I was like, which is even more terrifying in my mind. I was like,
Yeah,
oh gosh,
I don't know which is worse, honestly.
they're both pretty bad. Yeah.
Yeah,
Brennan, cool off, man. All right. Just,
right. Such a
you know,
cool. I think definitely my favorite of the, at least of the introductions.
yeah.
That
Hmm.
aura man is just metal.
Hmm.
Like the fact that it
Yeah.
supersedes like these magical rules, which there's nothing else we've seen do that, but
Yeah.
she has the right to kill you if you run away from her. Like that's
Yeah.
just hardcore, man.
Yeah.
Which
That's probably not good. So,
yeah, like just such a cool visceral like scene to imagine. And speaking of, as always, the music was so good, both in this coven introduction moment, but also in the library from Taylor. Like it was just always taking it to the next level. So our typical shout out to that for each episode.
mm,
Um, but honestly, I'm curious to get your, because obviously we have Indri on the surface, beautiful, like really friendly, but we've been wondering if that's just kind of like the facade. Hakaya, ancient, seems nice, like a kind old woman, but like we don't really know. Whereas Grimoire is like will literally kill you. And then Marara has been really iffy vibes as well. But I'm wondering like if there is an ally to be found here. I feel like the easy like place to jump would be, oh, Hakaya, like the kind old woman in the forest. Like that's already very like Ame like, but what if she was like the worst? And like maybe
yeah,
Grimoire is the one they can get through to or something.
I definitely didn't get like vibes of sweet old lady. I got vibes of like scary old lady, like from like a horror movie where like the really old lady is like the scariest one.
Yeah,
Like that,
yeah.
you're just like, oh, you're not gonna help me. Like I don't know. I don't know where she finds an ally. They all seem pretty, terrifying. I guess. I really don't trust any of them. Not even probably Marara's like the closest, just from her relation with Grandmother Rin. But the fact that Marara like was opposing Ren, not like in a fighting way, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. So I'm curious to see where that goes. And especially given the whole added layer of what Suvi's trying to do here. Because like, what if Ame does kind of get Indri on her side, but then Indri finds out what Suvi's like doing here, and then that
Mm,
throws everything into chaos. So yeah,
mm.
I don't know. I could just see it would be cool if there was like a little bit of a subversion where like Grimoire was the one that she was able to get through to, kind of.
Yeah,
But
I
I
could see
don't
that. Yeah.
know.
Okay.
Also, so Hakaya has the Oaken person spirit, and then the Fireflies, which I think the Firefly person was her apprentice. I don't know if that was
Yeah,
explicitly said.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And then Grimoire has the toddler
Mm.
apprentice, but also there was the werewolf. I don't know if werewolf is even the right word,
Yeah.
but
No, yeah, you're right.
so was that just a random member of the beast horde and not necessarily like an apprentice or anything? I couldn't remember.
I don't know, because her familiar was
Familiar
like
was the
a
hawk,
yeah, I was gonna say an eagle. That's right, the
and
hawk.
Hikaya's was the snake.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that guy had more importance than just random member of the
What?
squad or not.
Well, now I'm like wondering if I'm mixing up things. I think you're right though. I was gonna say was the werewolf the spirit guy who was like made of wood, but he came in like holding up Hakaya or like
He was
helping
like already,
Hakaya.
yeah. So,
Yeah. So I don't know actually.
but I'm assuming the werewolf guy is with Grimoire, but I don't know. Guess he could
Yeah.
be with Hikaya, but it seems more like Grimoire.
Yeah.
And then Indri has Neef, and was Marara the one that doesn't have an apprentice? Because I know we like Ren said that not everyone does.
Yeah. I think as far as we know, yeah, I think that's right.
And then I mean they could easily be just somewhere else, but that might mean Marara's came alone and is the only one to have done so, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Or maybe Brennan's planning, her retinue, slinks in the shadows, like kind of on brand with
Yeah,
her.
I mean I could see that.
So,
For sure.
but
Yeah. So kind of lost my train of thought, but
well, presumably tomorrow's episode, which is it tomorrow or is it delayed again?
um
Do you know?
I haven't heard of a delay, but that doesn't mean it's not. So I would presume tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
I
I
don't
mean,
think I've gotten any emails.
tomorrow we could maybe even go straight into the meeting, but I
Yeah, I
don't
mean, it
know.
seems like that's what's going down. Which I wonder if Suvi will. I feel like it's going to be her best guess to try to get somebody to sing while that's happening.
Yeah.
Like, so the 5 most powerful people aren't around to see what
Yeah.
she's up to. I can't. I might need to go back and look, but I just remember that like she can't be the one to sing, and I would presume none of the wizards she brought could be the one to sing. But beyond that, I wonder if anyone could sing. Like, could it be somebody from Hikaya's retinue, or does it need to be like Neef or somebody from Indri's side of
Yeah.
things? I can't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um Other things. I've actually that's all my notes actually. We've kind of gone through it kind of quickly.
Um, yeah. The only other, I mean, nothing we haven't already touched on to some extent. Just that I'm wondering who Ame's gonna try to like ally with, and then very interesting that if the stranger thing is true, where like Ame is the only one standing in the way, that just throws another really interesting like layer to the relationship between Ame and Suvi, because they've been positioned as like the two warring fronts, but like in reality, like Ame is the only hope the Citadel has if that's true.
Right.
So that's really
Yeah,
interesting.
that's right. I love that.
But yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty much all I got. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on all this, especially the stranger thing. Because I'm just curious if Blake and I are like both hallucinating and we just missed when that was actually revealed, or if this is Ursulon like telling us that for the first time.
Pretty fair. Pretty fair guess. Yeah, let us know what you thought. We do have our Discord. You can check the link for the Discord below. And join the conversation with us. But otherwise, we got a new episode dropping tomorrow, and we'll dive into that. So,
Yes, sir. Well, alrighty, y'all. Thank you as always for tuning in, and we will see you soon. Bye, guys.